You've always been very philosophical, not only about basketball, but about life. And this is another example of of how you are approaching your view of life very
Yes,
philosophically because of this pandemic.
absolutely. I think I always try to stay true to my values, to the principles that I've learned throughout my life, my career, and and this is just another test, a big test, a big challenge. But I still focus on the basics, control what I can control. I always have the ability to control my attitude, my behavior, my reaction towards a situation, no matter how adverse and difficult it is, and try to be proactive, try to be constructive, try to be helpful, try to utilize my platform and my success to help those in need.
And of course, you always have, and you do have some very good advisors because your parents are doctors. And I'm wondering, what kind of information have they shared with you about this pandemic and how we are going to get through this?
Yeah, well, my parents, as you know, they come from the medical field. They worked all their careers as a doctor, as a nurse. So, but now they've been retired for a while, and now as a son, also I want them to be safe and protected. So once the whole thing started, I told them to get away, to kind of seclude themselves in a little cottage that we have in the mountains in Spain, and just to play it really safe. But they understand the gravity and the severity of the situation, how this virus is highly infectious, how it's taken those that are for the most part, vulnerable with immune systems that are compromised, or conditions that affect their immune systems and their ability to fight this virus. So, especially the elderly, no one is immune to it, and we also have to understand that. But so they understand how they need to be safe, and they need to protect themselves. They need to use masks when they leave the house, the times that they go to the grocery store. But more than anything right now, they're my parents. They're at an age where they're over 65, and I just want them to be really safe, so I can continue to have them in my life, in our lives, for as long as possible.
And for as much experience as they have, how do you sometimes want to question them and say, how long is this going to last? What do we have to do to get to that light at the end of the tunnel?
My mom especially actually showed and expressed some frustration about the healthcare system, about how certain collectives do not receive the proper medical attention. And I think our healthcare systems have been exposed and overwhelmed with the COVID-19 pandemic. We weren't prepared to absorb a virus of this caliber. Our healthcare workers weren't given the proper protective equipment to protect themselves, and a huge number of healthcare workers got infected by trying to take care of patients. So again, I think there's a lot of, like I said earlier, a lot of lessons that we need to learn from this crisis. We need to understand how the healthcare workers and first responders have become our heroes. They're always our heroes, whether we realize it or not. They're always there. They always put themselves on the line. And it takes a pandemic like this one, where everyone's health is at stake, to be able to understand and acknowledge that. And we should always acknowledge that, no matter what. So my mom is shown and expressed some frustrations, how hopefully some good things will come out of this, and how our healthcare system needs to be modified, improved, and better equipped to be able to face enemies like the one we're facing today.
And Paul, what about the political aspect of this whole thing? Because, we, especially here, only in the United States, but around the world, we have some really, really, really smart people that are out there that know exactly, that we trust and love and admire for their knowledge of medicine.
Mm-hmm.
But then there are some people who are saying there's a political aspect of that that's kind of holding this thing back as well. Would you agree to that?
Well, politics is a whole different beast, right? It's a whole different aspect of our lives and society. and that always has an effect because we do have politicians that are in charge, and they make certain decisions, and they're elected to do that. But this is this is a time where we're facing an unprecedented situation. There's a lot of unknown. You can see how different countries have reacted or acted a different way, and how that's worked, and it's all been kind of all very experimental to a certain degree. I think one of the biggest takeaways is that we need to have a system through our healthcare or through the WHO where our countries, where information is shared from country to country in a very transparent way, in a very immediate way, so we can be more prepared and help each other out in order to prevent virus like this one to spread and have the terrible effects that have had so far, and will continue to have, unfortunately. So yes, politics is an issue. I think I'm a believer, and I think that we need to be constructive and not criticize each other out of frustration and anger. We need to learn from our mistakes, but we need to help each other out. We need to come together. We need to put politics aside and really see from each and everyone's position how we can help. How can we be a contributor to this crisis and to this situation?
From a worldwide perspective, do your parents think that this is going to get better or worse?
My parents only have the limited knowledge that they have, right? So right now, they're staying away, but they see the effects, and they see how it's affecting many communities and many countries, and we just hear probably the countries that have the ability to test more, right? But there's now it's hitting very hard South America, and it will hit hard Africa, and it will hit hard India and countries that don't have the same means as the U.S. or some of the European countries have. So this thing is, it's hard to really grasp how devastating the effects and the reach of the infection it really has. So again, it's just time to be safe, to be really on top of things, to trust our experts and our leaders to do the right thing. But to continue to be responsible from the individual standpoint. And that's something that we really need to continue to have in mind, because that's something that we can control. Our households, our actions on our daily basis. Obviously, I think the fact that don't take this slightly, it's now understated. We understand how difficult and how grave the situation is, and how dangerous this virus is. So we'll continue to be safe until we have a vaccine, until everyone has access to a vaccine that works. We need to continue to be extra safe and limit the damage of this virus.
And from a common sense standpoint, what have you learned about yourself, and what have you learned about us as a people because of this situation that we're in with this virus?
Well, I think there's been a lot of great positive examples of humanity, of togetherness, of solidarity in the world. And we're gonna continue to encourage people to do that. We gotta come together. We can't battle this thing on our own, or think that we need to act selfishly. We need to really be aware of how we can act and continue to behave in order to bid this thing together. So I've learned that people now understand how important the healthcare workers' work and dedication, and how their vocation to their work. It's been so critical to the working around the clock, having bruises in their faces, putting themselves on the line. It's been truly, I think, inspiring to a lot of people. But now, as I wrote in an article recently, it's not just about recognizing them and clapping them at 8 p.m. at night, going out on our balconies, or it's also about acting responsibly, utilizing a mask to go outside, continue to wash our hands thoroughly and frequently throughout the day, and continue to follow, again, protocol from the CDC and the WHO. So that's kind of how we're gonna be. We're being tested, we've been tested. And now how do we react to this test? And we got to continue to stay strong, continue to be patient, continue to stay and work together. And that's, I believe it's the best way to get through this. And it will make us stronger down the road.
You still have a foundation here in Los Angeles to help those that are misfortunate or less fortunate.
Mm-hmm.
How is that foundation going, and why did you keep it going here?
Well, to me, it's been very important. Early in my career, I understood that I could really use the success that I've had as a basketball player to help others. I could use my platform, my success, to really impact people's lives in a positive way, especially those that are most vulnerable and those that do not have the same opportunities that I've had as a person. So with that said, I started being a Goodwill ambassador in the early 2000s. I've been a Goodwill ambassador for UNICEF for 17 years. But then 2013, I decided, along with my brother Mark, to create our own foundation, and that it was going to be directed to one of the biggest threats to children in the world, which is childhood obesity. Now, cardiovascular diseases being the highest, the number one cause of death in the world, and a lot of cardiovascular diseases come from obesity that are developed because of obesity. So we needed to approach that, and we needed to do everything we could to tackle that and change the direction of the curve, which has been going up for 30, 40 years. So that's been our mission. And we have an office in LA and headquarters in LA, and we have programs in LA. We have relationships with the YMCAs, with our program Energy. We have relationships with Boys and Girls Club in LA, and we've been working with the LA Partnership Schools, also organization, with our program Vida. So now we're partnered with World Center Kitchen, which we helped deliver 4,000 meals at the forum last weekend, and we delivered diapers, backpacks, a lot of also content as far as healthy habits. I think the habits of our children and families with all this sheltering in place and confinement have been really affected. So for us to continue to provide knowledge about the importance of being active at home, being able to create healthy routines at home, about eating healthy, participating in cooking meals, understanding what we eat and what we don't eat, understanding also the emotional well-being with all the uncertainty and adversity that we're facing. These are all real things things already are projecting of higher level of depression, a number of depressions after this during this pandemic, potential spike on obesity rates, and also even suicidal rates and numbers going up, abuse at home, domestic abuse at home going up. Again, a lot of collateral damage is happening already because of this pandemic. So our work has been even more important than ever during this pandemic. So we're trying to be extremely proactive. We have shifted, and we've been producing as much video content as we can to just put it out there, really be of help in a time of need.
Pau, where did you get this sense of helping from? I mean,
my parents.
It is a very noble cause of what you're doing.
My parents, again, growing up in a household where my mom comes home from helping patients and working with patients, and my dad the same, one as a doctor and one as a nurse. We grew up in that environment. I myself wanted to be a doctor, and I did one year in med school in Barcelona before I kind of chose completely and fully dedicated myself to basketball. So I've always had a huge understanding of the importance of health, and again, basketball just has helped me fulfill some of that desire of helping others, and especially those that are at risk or in a very vulnerable position.
You know, Paul, one of my favorite sayings, and we talk about giving back and being noble, and I've said this many times before, one of my favorite sayings comes from Dr. King, when he said, giving back to your fellow mankind is one of the most noble things that anyone can do. Absolutely. And what could be more noble than what you, Pau Gasol, are doing?
Yes. So, well, again, it is something that I have ingrained in me. It's something that I've learned, and I've received so much also on a personal level to be able to impact others and help others and give people chances, especially, again, children, which have a future. They're the future of our our world, if you will, right? So again, we have a lot of work in LA. We want to continue to grow that. We have programs in San Antonio, Texas, which we work with different multiple housing communities there. And we're also providing meals and content and knowledge and programs there. So our work is pretty much just begun. One of the sayings that or mottos that I keep in my head a lot, it's, at the end of the day, at the end of my journey, when I look back, I think my life will be measured, and I think that goes for everyone's. How many people I have been able to impact along the way, in a positive way. So I want to really make my journey as impactful as possible, and I have the ability to do that in many of my years of visiting hospitals and patients and cancer patients and a lot of kids and families going through very difficult times in LA at Children's Hospital, many occasions. Those human interactions have been some of the most rewarding in my life. So as athletes, we have that chance and opportunity. I think each and every person has that opportunity to a certain degree, but athletes, by being successful, being recognizable, being admired, being considered to some degree role models, you have the ability to touch people's lives in a way that it's just magical. So that's what I would encourage everyone that has that chance to really discover something that touches you, that you want to make a difference in, and make that a big part of your life.
And you have always used your platform with sports in order to help other people. But I'd like for you to talk about, because in the past, whenever there was a national disaster or something really bad would happen, we had sports to give us a little breather. Sports was there to give us a little break from the reality of everything. Now, and I know we're getting back towards that, but now there aren't any sports. So this should tell you and everyone how important sports are to the United States, to the world, and the athletes who want to help give back as well.
Absolutely. And I totally agree. I think sports is one of the pillars that our society kind of sustains on. It's such an important part of our lives from the entertainment standpoint, but also from the inspirational standpoint as well, because it shares so many values, right? Even as a fan that you're watching, you're admiring this man or women playing the sport they love, and you kind of even picture yourself even doing that, but you admire a lot of them because you can't do what they do. It's pretty amazing. Some of these athletes, what they're able to do in across the sports. It doesn't have to be just one sport. So, but now athletes have the chance to really come together and step up for their communities, and they can provide that type of entertainment and inspiration on the court or on the fields. But they can do it in different ways, and ways that are also very important and much needed during these times. So they can be, again, someone or people that their communities can support themselves on, and they can count on. We love our fans. We count on our fans. Our lives are very much affected by the love and admiration of our fans. Make sure that now we turn that love back to them and that appreciation, because without them, I always had that just like media as well. Media have a tremendous role and an important, very important, critical role as far as sharing what we do to the world. Without, media, we wouldn't be able to do that. We wouldn't have that impact. We wouldn't have that following, and we wouldn't have the life that we are so lucky to have. So again, it's a moment to appreciate each and every one that contributes to your life, and everyone right now needs that interconnectivity, and that caring for each other, that solidarity.